All right, welcome in everyone. Welcome in. As you can see, we are going to be playing the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles today. So when we last left off, we had a guilty verdict. So everybody had voted guilty, and now we got to do our little lawyery thing where we convince them they're wrong, and then they vote for us. So that's what we're going to do today. So let's go ahead and quickly get an intro and then hop right in. So here we go. Greetings, friends, and welcome to Enigma Night Gaming. My name is Liara, and I will be your guide in today's adventure. Today, we are playing the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, and in today's episode, we must sway the jury to our side. They have voted guilty, and that's not good, because we know Drubber was a liar, but for whatever reason, they're convinced he's telling the truth. What is this? Well, let's hop in and see if we can convince the jury that we, in fact, are correct. Without further ado, let's hop into the game. All right, here we go. Oh boy. Okay, so this is where we left off. Oh boy, the judicial findings. The jurors' contentions. What are they going to say? I've known that woman for years. She'd never be an accomplice to anything. It's utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving with one another. Oh dear, this is most troubling. But surely the waxwork the man stole is nothing to do with the coroner, is it? I have had my own problems with members of the police. I do not trust them much. I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever inside the birdcage. It's conjecture. Accusing someone without right evidences is not a proper job, is he? I won't have it. How did they put like a 6-year-old on the jury? That's what I want to know. Somewhat unsurprisingly, it seems the introduction of this waxwork model to the proceedings has polarized opinion. Given that its face is obscured, and its build in no way resembles that of the victim, I can only applaud my learned friend's temerity at suggesting it as Mr. Asmund's body double. Yes, the applause is deafening. And yes, I know it seems extraordinary. But that's the point. That's why I have a strong feeling it's actually a greater clue than anyone yet realizes. What are you thinking, Mr. Naruhodo? I can't explain why at the moment, but I feel as though there's a specific reason why it was used, why it had to be this model. Really? A reason why nothing else would do, you mean? Yes, and I'm convinced it's something far more significant than whether or not the model looked like the victim. Well, if that's the case, we must prevent the trial from ending prematurely at all costs. Yes, agreed. I have to find a way out of this. If you are ready, counsel, you may proceed with the summation examination. Yes, my lord. Here we go. So we've got to either pit two jurors against each other, or we've got to find contradictory evidence to what they're saying versus what we have. So let's see what we got. I've known that woman for years. She'd never be an accomplice to anything. Hold it! Let's press everyone first. The order of things seems to have changed around here for some reason. I'm a copper, lad. It's a copper's discretion to bend the rules sometimes when needs must. What's wrong with that? Where do I start? I've been working at the yard for 40-odd years. That's even more than I thought. We've only had a metropolitan police service in town for 70 years, you know. Of course, times have changed. The public didn't trust coppers back when I started. It was rough. We had to fight crime, and we had to fight to win the public's trust as well. And when we did, forensic science was in its infancy too, even more than it is now. And she spearheaded the revolution. Dr. Scythe, you mean? That's right. About 10 years ago now it was, when I was still a youngish bobby on the beat. That's when she started making a name for herself as a top-class coroner. I don't think you were young 10 years ago, sir. Just saying. And now look at her, head of the forensic investigation team, and a woman, no less. Well, you out here me complain. It's what we all dreamt of back then, I tell you. Did you tell me without holding the gun in the air? We were all up to uphold justice, lad. Full of them we were, full of them. And that's coming across loud and clear. It's utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving with one another. Why is that? But we're only just starting to understand this case. Oh, what are you reading there, sir? The man behind those murders on Solar Pond Street was caught in 2 days flat. That's real policing for you. That's really not relevant to this case, is it? You're wrong there. Because it was Dr. Scythe in charge of examining the bodies, and it was evidence arising from her work that led to the arrest of the scoundrel responsible. Oh. That's right. Oh. That woman is at the forefront of this country's fight against crime. The idea that she's somehow involved in this murky business is a load of old tosh. I thought it was up to me to press the jurors, not the other way around.
Oh dear, this is most troubling. But surely the waxwork the man stole is nothing to do with the coroner, is it?
Why would you assume that?
Well, quite simply because that unsettling swindler has no relationship with the woman, does he?
True. As it stands, we don't know of any connection.
Oh gosh, but it would be delightfully romantic if they were somehow to have a mutual interest in the waxwork.
Romantic?
A woman of society such as myself views everything in terms of relationships, you know.
Well, you learn something new every day, even if you don't want to.
One might wonder about a possible relationship between the defendant and this coroner woman. Or perhaps between the defendant and the handsome prosecutor just there.
This woman may be more astute than I've been giving her credit for.
If that's the woman's stance, then perhaps demonstrating some connection between the waxwork and Dr. Scythe would be enough.
Yes, I agree. As soon as we have even a whiff of a connection, she'll be the first to know. Okay, so we need to keep our eyes out for that. I've had my own problems with members of the police. I do not trust them much.
Hold it!
What sort of problems? Let's just say we have run into each other on numerous occasions while I've been performing on the street. Right? I see. Obviously, artists such as myself cannot appear on stage as we work in close proximity to our audiences. So we perform our great magic in parks, on street corners, and the like. But the police use any excuse to make our lives difficult. Oh, we have somebody who has a disagreement about that?
Excuse me.
Do you have something to say in response to that, Mr. Ottermole? You call it a mass murderer. Sorry, my mistake. I got confused because I heard you look like him. I don't look anything like the man. You want to be locked up, Sonny? Thanks, Mr. Sholmes. Perhaps we can move on. I was really wondering if you had something you wanted to add in response to what juror number 3 just said. That is so not a safe way to be holding a gun, sir. And clearly you do. Back in my day, back in the good old days, it wasn't like this. What was it like, sir? We worked our fingers to the bone to earn the public's trust, we did. And by Jove, we earned it. People earned respect then. Respected you, No one would have called a coroner into question in them days. A coroner's report was the hallmark of an investigation done right. Especially when Dr. Courtney Stevens put her name to it. She was the best of the best and the apple of the force's eye. Wait, what? Hold on a minute. That's not the right name. What are you talking about? Who's Courtney Stevens? Sorry. Got a bit carried away there. Stevens is Dr. Sai's maiden name. Her maiden name? So that was before she was married. Of course, yes. Silly me. It's Side now, isn't it? Stevens. I'm sure I've seen that name somewhere recently. Anyway, the point is, those were the great days of policing, not like now. Sorry to interrupt, sir. But do you think you could change your statement to include that name? Well, yes, I don't see why not. She was Courtney Stevens back when I knew her, of course, the legendary coroner, even then. I want to look at this, what we've got in the court record. Do we have something that has Stevens on it? Autopsy report, let's look. So that's Odie Osman. Okay, so nothing relevant there. What else do we have? What is this? Let's examine this. Condemned prisoner. Oh, okay. Condemned prisoner redacted for confidentiality. Pseudonym the professor. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th of June. Courtney Stevens. Okay, so she was the coroner of the professor. Okay. And there's nothing on here, right? This is just about Odie Osman and Enoch Drebber. Okay. So I think it has to do with that autopsy report, right? So can we hit him? Let's see. So, oh dear, this is most troubling. But surely the waxwork the man stole is nothing to do with the coroner, is it? She was Courtney Stevens back then, even when I knew her, of course. A legendary coroner, even then. It's not exactly a pit. I mean, it's kind of like a three-way thing. We have evidence that says she was the coroner. Okay, what if we're just gonna pit them and see what happens, because it's correct, but we might not have the sequence right. Let's see what happens. Those two statements clearly contradict each other. Good gracious, to whose statements do you refer, counsel? So, juror number 2.
Oh gosh, me? What can I do for you?
I presume that you heard what juror number 6 said in his statement. It's brought to light the maiden name of the coroner, Dr. Scythe, which in turn has revealed a connection that wasn't apparent before.
Well, naturally, as a woman of society, I find such connections and relationships irresistible. But oh golly, I'm afraid I failed to see what you mean.
Dr. Scythe's maiden name is Stevens. And through that name, the coroner is very definitely linked to the waxwork of the killer. The defense has evidence to prove it.
My goodness, evidence, you say? How utterly enthralling.
Counsel, the court cannot overlook that last remark. I very much hope there's substance to your claim. Of course, my lord. I would ask the court to look at this. The evidence that clearly links Dr. Scythe to the mass murderer known as the Professor. That would be the killer's autopsy report. I have here a certain autopsy report from 10 years ago. A 10-year-old autopsy report? What relevance does that have? It is, of course, from the autopsy of the person portrayed in the waxwork, the killer known as the Professor. The Professor's... But the man was a capital offender, so... That's right. This is the certification of death that was drawn up after the convict's execution. The identity of the killer was never made public, so the report gives few details. Oh, right. So the reason why this waxwork model had to be this the model for Odie Asmund is because the neck injury, right? What's important is the name of the coroner who wrote it. Courtney Stevens.
Oh my, Courtney Stevens.
Strike a light! It appears that the professor's autopsy was conducted by Dr. Syed 10 years ago. And a few days ago, Mr. Drebber very deliberately stole the waxwork of the professor from Madame Tuspel's. A waxwork that doesn't in fact resemble the victim, Mr. Asmund, at all.
And do you suppose there's some unsavory relationship between those events?
Absolutely, I'm sure of it. There's no doubt in my mind that the professor case is at the heart of a link that we have yet to uncover between Dr. Courtney Scythe and Mr. Enoch Drebber.
Hidden links, mysterious connections, secret relationships. This is all most extraordinary. We're surely obliged now to explore this further.
We've piqued her interest. Well, it only takes the one, right? Well, I think we gotta get like 3 more, actually. Quite right. We can't let this trial come to an end now. Not while there's this cloud of suspicion hanging over the yard's best coroner. It wasn't like this in my day, but we're still here to uphold justice in the end. All right, that's 2. We gotta get 2 more. Right?
It's the professor. That's what links the frightful swindler and the coroner.
I've had my own problems with the member of the police. I do not trust them much. Okay, so we might can pit her with someone else. I've seen no rigorous proof that this waxwork was ever inside the birdcage. It's conjecture.
Accusing someone without right evidences is not a proper job, is he? I won't have it.
We actually need to press him and her. So let's press. I've got to ask, why have you brought that corn into court with you?
Colonel Cobb, he's been going back on the farm. Picked him off on my way to town. He's a proper nibbler, he is.
Yes, the nibbling seems to be taking quite a while. Maybe it could wait until after the trial?
Oh, I don't like the sound of that. You need colonels at times like these. Whenever I'm somewhat big to decide, the colonels always point me in the right direction, see?
You're talking about your cob of corn.
Nibble, nobble, guilty, bobble. Nibble, not guilty, out. Nibble, nobble, guilty, bobble. Nibble, not guilty, out.
Okay, what in the world? What in the world?
Perhaps it's akin to fortune-telling with flower petals like people do back home.
So Professor Harebrain's fate is to be decided by a cob of corn. Could you at least not wait until we've had more time to find the truth before deciding on the defendant's guilt?
Oh, I don't know about that. Me tum is awfully full already.
Amazing. The dad jokes. I know it seems a little far-fetched to think that the waxwork model of the professor was in that birdcage, but on the other hand, it explains a lot.
If there really is a reason why that particular waxwork had to be used as Mr. Asmund's double, we must do everything we can to make the jurors understand it.
The truth is, I'm sure that's the key to this, but it's the most puzzling part of it too.
In that case, you should see what additional information you can glean whilst trying to change the jurors' minds. If you can read a book whilst eating a rice cracker, Mr. Naruhodo, I'm sure you can do this.
Right, yes. Okay, so we need to press the other guy, right? So his line now, if a yard's coroner is under suspicion, then we're not done here yet, are we? Clearly. Okay, so I think it's going to be the second lady, right? So utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving. Maybe we pit her against him.
It's the professor. That's what links that frightful swindler in the corner.
So I really think it might be. We'll have to pit him though. But first, we will press this guy, right? Let's press him. I've seen no rigorous proof that the waxwork was ever inside the birdcage. It's conjecture.
Hold it!
We'll go ahead and press him, then we'll have pressed everyone. But you claim the whole instantaneous kinesis demonstration was a trick. That I did, but there's more than one way to pull a rabbit out of a hat, isn't there? Sorry? I grant you, given that this cage appeared from amidst an explosion, there'd have been no need to use a real person. But if a waxwork had been used, the culprit could have at least had the decency to make it look like the victim. I'm not sure exactly how much criminals are governed by decency. The point is, if you're going to make a claim about that waxwork being inside the birdcage, you need to give us some evidence. Without that, it's just not science.
I suppose we should expect nothing less than a logical argument from a fellow of the Royal Society. But that perhaps means his mind could be changed if we manage to present suitable evidence.
Evidence that the Professor Waxwork was inside that birdcage, Can I produce that or not? Can we? I'm not sure. Let's look and see what we've got. Let's examine. Is there anything that might tell us? Like, let's examine it thoroughly. We've examined all this, but is there anything else? I don't know. I don't know that we have the evidence. What about the helmet? Let's examine this. There is this. We've already examined the key. I don't think there's anything else on this itself that we can examine. Let me look at the birdcage again. I mean, I don't know. I don't think we have it yet. If we do, I don't know what it would be. I'm looking very carefully. I mean, I feel like we have a pretty good idea of it, but I just don't know yet. I don't know that we have the evidence yet. I don't know that we have the evidence. Well, I can state quite categorically, sir, that we have no such evidence at the present time. Now, we might can get some. That much was abundantly clear before that brassy proclamation, I assure you. And why, you can count on the fact that I shan't be changing my leaning.
Oh dear, that proclamation was even brassier than yours, Mr. Naruhodo.
If only we had some evidence. Things might be different, though. I wonder if we can get some more evidence. Alright, so let's go back around to technically the second guy. And see if we can't, find out, if we can't press him, right? Maybe? Let's see. Alright, so we're just gonna skip past all this. Alright. I want to save it because we only have one thing left, and I don't want to have to redo all of this if we mess up. So, alright. So, let's see. Alright, so let's just go back. Back. Okay. Now, let's see if we can figure this out. Alright, so it's not going to be this guy, right? It's utter nonsense to think those two would ever be conniving with one another. Let's pit. Can we pit? We cannot. We can only pit against those 4. Huh. Okay. So we've got to come up with some kind of evidence then. What kind of evidence can we come up with? I'm really not sure. Let me think. Ooh, okay, maybe we've got some evidence that we don't know about. Let's go back here to him. This is the only lead we've had, right? Let's look at the court record and let's look at all of our evidence. So not the armband. This is the Great Exhibition newspaper. This just talks about all of that information. I don't think that's helpful. I don't think this is going to be helpful. What else do we got? This was about the balloon, but we've already introduced that. This was the crossbow. Is there anything on the print? Nothing. I mean, there's the glass. Is there anything about the glass? Let's see. Is there something about this? I don't know how. I mean, we found out that this came from the tower, right? A small fragment of very unusual and thick glass that was found in the folds. Oh, of the Professor waxwork. Oh, I thought it was okay. So this is 100% the piece of evidence we need. So let's present this to him in response to his query, right? So let's press him.
Hold it!
All right. We'll get back to the part where it says we have evidence, right? Okay. Give us some evidence, right? So we have the evidence. Okay. So, evidence that the Professor waxwork was inside that birdcage. Can I produce that or not? We definitely have evidence. Actually, I have something I'd like you to see, sir. Oh, I must warn you that I firmly believe it's only wise to trust men in white coats. So, given your jet black outfit, I don't mind admitting to a sense of trepidation here. So, you don't trust anyone in black? Looking in the mirror must be very trying. Exactly. I do have some evidence that proves the waxwork was inside that birdcage. Namely, this piece of glass, a small fragment of very unusual and thick glass that was found in the folds of clothing of the Professor Waxwork. It would appear to be from the Crystal Tower. All right, so let's pause for the ads and then we'll present this and we'll continue on. I had completely forgotten about this. I thought that glass was just something we picked up, so this is going to be great to be able to present this. We just gotta reread the stuff. I thought it might be something like how, because he's got like that little protrusion on his chest on the paper. I thought maybe that was going to be the glass or something. But yeah, so this is definitely going to be groundbreaking here. It's going to be amazing. So we're almost done with the ads. We've got about 30 more seconds and then we'll be able to present this case. It's going to be awesome. All right. And then what do we think is going to happen next? Like, I wonder if we're going to find a key to open this and find out that somehow he in fact actually did sort of look like Odiasmin. Because it said no one knew what his face looked like, right? I feel like that's going to be a a twist ending, if you will. All right, so it looks like the ads are over. Let's go ahead and return and present the broken piece of glass. All right, so here we go.
Take that!
What's that? A piece of glass? Though it's unusually thick for glass. Yes, it's a piece of broken glass that we found inside the jacket on the waxwork. As you say, it's not ordinary glass, though. It's very thick and clearly made for extra strength, much like the special glass that was developed for the construction of the Crystal Tower. The Crystal Tower? Holy smoke! Exactly. The centerpiece of the Great Exhibition, where the very incident we're talking about took place. On the day in question, the birdcage fell from above and smashed through a window of that special glass. From whence this small piece originated, is that it? Precisely. So, what do you say? Now that clear evidence in support of the assertion has been placed before you. He has to change it, right? Well, as I said, I only trust men in white coats as a rule. However, when the reasoning is sound, it's fair to say color shouldn't come into it. In light of what you've shown here, yes, I feel obliged to change my position on the matter. In that case, juror number 4, you will amend your statement now, please. The presence of that piece of glass leaves me in little doubt that the waxwork was indeed inside that birdcage. Okay, so now we should be able to pit him against somebody else. Which one? Accusing someone with outright evidences is not a proper job, is he? I won't have it. So we have the evidences, right? Is this the correct thing that we would want to do? Because I'm thinking that makes the most sense, right? Let's try it.
Objection!
Those two statements clearly contradict each other. Good gracious, to whose statements do you refer, counsel? If you could put down your corn for a moment, juror number 5.
Oh, you mean me?
You've pointed out that it's wrong to make an accusation without evidence. But the accusation that the waxwork model was inside the second birdcage on the day in question is not without supporting evidence, as the defense demonstrated to the juror sitting beside you.
Oh, is that right?
It is. Would it be fair to say you didn't follow the argument?
I don't understand much besides Colonel Cobb, to be honest.
Of course you don't. I mean, you're like, what, 6? If I could interject here. Please do, sir. Now that this assertion of yours about the waxwork has been backed up by some solid evidence, it would be wrong of me as man of science not to pursue the matter further. All right, that's 3. We just need one more. One more vote.
Well, me too then.
Sorry?
If this brainy gentleman says he's right, then he must be. See, I wouldn't dream of going against Colonel Cobb or anyone who's got stuff in between the ears.
Okay, well there's our 4. We good about it in a rather unusual way, but success, if you can call it that. Oh boy. Thank you, counsel. That will do. As a result of the summation examination, the jury's overall leaning has changed. 2 jurors now call guilty against 4 who called not guilty. Accordingly, the court has failed to reach a consensus at this time, and the trial must continue. We did it?
Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo. Another wonderful victory.
Well, nice. Awesome. So what now? A waxwork of the despicable professor. used as a body double for the victim in this quite extraordinary case. I must say it's extremely hard to believe the assertion could possibly be true. However, it would appear that it does at least warrant further investigation.
It's the waxwork of the professor that links Mr. Drebber and Dr. Scythe. And I'm convinced that there's a special significance to that link.
I don't know what you're hoping to prove, lad. I really don't.
The truth, sir, by using evidence and testimony.
Humph. If the court is to delve deeper into the alleged involvement of the waxwork in this case, then the prosecution calls for the owner of the model to be summoned as a witness. Ooh, Madame Tuspels? The owner? Madame Tuspels. I really thought that Lord Van Zieks would object to this whole line of inquiry. Very well, I concur. Make arrangements for Madame Tuspels to appear as a witness with immediate effect. Oh boy. Listen carefully, my learned friend. Oh, yes? You should know that you're on the brink of opening Pandora's box. Aren't we always on the brink of opening Pandora's box, though? I mean, I feel like we are. The court shall now adjourn for 45 minutes. During that time, the prosecution will summon the new witness and prepare her for taking the stand. Madame Tuspels, yes. I shall see to it at once, my lord. Oh boy. So, we will go a little bit longer. We will proceed a little bit further. Probably after the first set of questioning, if I had to guess. All right. Let us continue. The 24th of October, 11:53 a.m., the Old Bailey, defendant's antechamber. Ah, the knight errant himself. Oh, have you been watching from the gallery, Mr. Sholmes? I've been on the edge of my seat the entire time. Courtroom trials are fascinating affairs, as a spectator at least.
I'm glad you've been enjoying yourself.
I have to ask. What on earth is going on? It makes no sense. What is this professor business all about? He doesn't look like any professor I've ever met before. Who even is he?
Ah, of course. You were in Germany already 10 years ago.
Yes, the professor. When I discovered he was the one who had been abducted, a sense of foreboding stirred within me. But who knew the monster would come knocking at your door? My heartfelt sympathies.
As it turns out, Lord Van Zieks is even more intimately tied to this case than any of us realize, isn't he?
Yes, how true. His great friend from university in the dock.
And now a waxwork of the killer who took his esteemed brother's life makes an appearance too. I imagine even the shrewd Mr. Reaper failed to foresee that kick in the teeth. An extraordinary move on your part, my dear fellow, to throw that in front of the man.
You make it sound deliberate.
I can't help feeling that this professor case is really very puzzling.
Oh yes, in what particular manner?
Well, there's Mr. Drebber, Dr. Scythe, and Lord Van Zieks. It seems that everybody in the trial has a link to the case somehow.
I mean, it's true.
Yes, in fact, I alone am not a member of the set. Though that leaves me as an empty set, all alone with no intersection to any other. Which really makes me wonder why he's still even on trial. He obviously has no connection whatsoever to any of this mess. Excuse me. Who is that? Oh. Dr. Scythe. Ah, Dr. Courtney Scythe, Nee Stevens. Good day to you. Hello, Sholmes. That was very shrewd of you. What in particular, pray? You requested that 10-year-old autopsy report from Gregson, didn't you? Why would you assume such a thing? Because Gregson told me. To think it's been 10 years. 10 years in the laboratory, wielding my scalpel. I smell of nothing but corpses and disinfectant. Policeman on the jury had a lot to say about you, as it happens, Dr. Scythe, and I've accused you of being complicit in what happened. I'm hoping that you'll take the stand and tell the truth about what really happened. That certainly won't be possible. Why not? Lord Van Zieks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it. Lord Strongheart? The Pandora's box you were warned about is the Professor case. But please, don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me.
But attempting to hide from the truth, that's cowardice.
I've always fought crime in the way that I see fit. I have no regrets, none at all. And that's all I came here to say. So, good day to you. I wonder, it's a shame we can't call her as like a witness. I mean, she mentioned it too, this Pandora's box.
Whatever does it all mean?
There's really no cause for concern, I assure you. When the trial resumes, the meaning will become all too apparent, whether you'd like it to or not. Huh? Now then, I believe it's almost time. I must make my way back to the public gallery. The edge of my seat awaits. I think maybe you're enjoying yourself a little too much. Just a little bit. Ah, yes, one word of warning before I go. If in the course of the trial this afternoon you perceive even a shadow of doubt about the truth, don't let it out of your sight. Pursue it like a dog with a bone. Oh boy. To the bitter end, you understand. Do not falter, whatever may come to pass. Oh man. Alright, I understand. Thank you. Good. I shall make myself scarce then. I purchased a bar of caramel earlier, so I shall be gnawing on it as you gnaw away at the truth. Sholmes' caramel bar. What did that warning from Mr. Sholmes really mean, I wonder? Especially the bit about whatever may come to pass. Oh boy. I guess we're gonna find out. It's time for the final chapter then. I'm determined to find the truth, no matter what. Oh boy. What are we gonna discover? 24th October, 12:40 p.m. The Old Bailey courtroom. What Pandora's box are we about to open? In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready and able to continue? The prosecution is ready, my lord. Yes, my lord. The defense is also ready. As the court is aware, the case is now under our scrutiny, began with a damaging incident at the Great Exhibition. Yet we now find ourselves embroiled in the details of a convicted felon who was sent to the gallows a decade ago. This trial has certainly defied all expectation, as seems to be the fate of all trials in which this Nipponese is involved, my lord. So then, let us begin our exploration of the defense's assertion that the waxwork was cardinally involved in this matter. Lord Van Zieks?
My lord.
Are we still awaiting the arrival of Madame Tuspels?
Not at all. She is in the antechamber as we speak, and ready to be summoned.
Very well. Bring in the witness.
At once, my lord. Bailiff, show Madame Tuspels to the stand.
Things are about to become a lot more intense. If Drebber is responsible, as I'm sure he is, it means he must have had an accomplice in Dr. Syed.
And what connects the pair of them is the waxwork.
Yes, the model of the professor. That's the key to the link between these otherwise unrelated individuals. It's a tenuous link, admittedly, but at present, it's all we have to go on. Oh boy.
State your name and occupation for the court, please.
My name is Madame Esmeralda Tuspels. I am a waxwork artisan, and the proprietress of the Madame Tuspels Museum of Waxwork. You will have to pardon me for working as I testify. My new exhibit must open very soon.
Oh boy. Oh, so he finally gets a statue, does he? Now there are two of them in the world.
Oh my, what expression is she carving onto that face?
Oh boy.
A number of days ago, a particular waxwork model was stolen from your museum. Can you confirm this?
Oh oui, that is true.
At first, we believed it had been kidnapped.
A waxwork model kidnapped?
Yes, my lord. There was a demand for ransom money left behind by the culprit. However, according to what I have just been told outside the courtroom, that was not the true reason. I understand it was utilized as a substitute for the body of a murder victim?
At present, that is no more than conjecture proposed by the defense. This is the victim of the case in question, Mr. Odi Asman. But of course, I know him well. He is a part of my odious personages exhibit. I detest to say what is evident, but Mr. Asman does not resemble the professor at all.
Yes, but perhaps their faces are very similar.
Are you suggesting that we should see now the demasked visage of the professor? I have here the key, but it is strictly forbidden to open the lock.
This is absurd.
Pardon?
I don't know what face you've carved into your fancy figure beneath that mask, but clearly it won't be that of the actual killer.
Indeed. The man's identity was never made public, after all.
The trial took place in a closed court. The proceedings were strictly confidential. The condemned man was summarily executed. His identity remains a closely guarded national secret. There is no possible way that a repository of tawdry exhibits could get its hands on that information. Quel dommage. It would seem you are unaware of the Tuspels principles.
What principles?
The family Tuspels has always prided itself on sculpting its models à la perfection. Every detail, including the visage, is fashioned with complete fidelity. Et voilà, our principles. There is a well-known legend about the Tuspels waxworks from the time of the French Revolution. A member of the Tuspels family is said to have made a waxwork of the queen who was executed. Oh oui, that is true. It was a century ago now. I believe the Queen's face was carved in the minutes following her death, actually at the guillotine site. You are correct. The model is on display still in the House of Horrors. We Tuspels will stop at nothing to obtain a faithful replica of our subjects.
Dear me, a somewhat disturbing tenacity of purpose.
It is the only way to obtain a truly lifelike representation of the subject. And it has been my family secret for generations.
Do you mean to say that beneath that mask?
Oh oui, the true visage of the killer is there.
This is ludicrous. It is out of the question.
The professor spread terror throughout Great Britain. As a result, the Madame Tuspel's special exhibit remains extremely popular even today. The killer emerging from his own grave. It is a sight to behold. You should come.
I think, madam, it would be beneficial to hear your formal testimony on this matter. You will explain every detail of this macabre model and your personal involvement in its creation.
With pleasure.
Oh boy. What's she gonna say? The Professor Waxwork.
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shocked London society. An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse in accordance with the Tuspel's family principles. I enlisted the aid of the gravedigger and created a mold for the head in the cemetery just before the interment. I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night. As dawn approached, I was very worried that I could be discovered.
Okay. The gravedigger, the man sanctioned this?
Oh oui, I will do all that is necessary to achieve the true resemblance my family is celebrated for. Nobody else knew, only the gravedigger. What harm did it do, huh?
So you truly saw it? The face of that monster. See, now he's personally invested. He wants to know because he needs that satisfaction.
Naturally, I was aware at the time that his identity was a secret. But Tuspels would not be Tuspels if we did not insist on absolute fidelity to our sculptures.
I don't believe this. I myself have seen the special exhibit at your museum, madam. A truly blood-curdling scene in which the murderer is emerging from his own grave.
The scene it depicts was the subject of many rumors in London 10 years ago. I have here a newspaper from the time.
Oh boy, Mr. Drubber's dreadful encounter when his hair is still black.
This special exhibit was based upon the picture in this article. It was the most detailed account of what happened, as reported by the eyewitnesses who saw it.
Alright, so we have a newspaper article recounting the tale of an eyewitness to the alleged resurrection of the professor from his grave on the night of his execution. The man rises from the grave. It's too absurd for words.
And the public enjoys absurdity, monsieur. That is why I have reproduced the scene as carefully as possible in my museum.
And it's a waxwork from that exhibit that was stolen some days before the incident at the Great Exhibit, wasn't it?
That is correct. The professor you see before you here.
Most puzzling. Counsel for the defense, proceed with the cross-examination. This waxwork links Drubber to Scythe. And there has to be some reason for that, which hasn't yet come to light. But I'll find it. I'll get to the bottom of what really happened. I'll prove that Dr. Scythe and Drubber were in on this crime together. Oh boy, it's time for the cross-examination now. So I think Madame Tuspels likes us, so we'll see what she has to say.
The special exhibit in the House of Horrors is based on a rumor that shocked society in London.
Hold it!
And that rumor would be?
A 10-year-old tale now, but one that no Londoner would ever forget.
All right, I know just what you're talking about, I think.
Of course, it couldn't be anything else.
Yes, that story will never disappear.
The tale of the condemned killer rising from the dead. That is the central attraction of my house of horrors. The rumor was whispered all over the city, and it was like this. It was in Lowgate Cemetery, behind the prison, in the dead of night, after the execution of the killer. The interred professor slid back from the stone slab, covering his tomb, and emerged from his grave. A young man who witnessed this felt a scream welling up inside him. But an instant later, he heard an ear-splitting gunshot from over his shoulder. The bullet struck the emerging corpse, and he fell motionless once more. The scream finally found its way from the mouth of the young witness, who turned and ran for his life.
Oh boy. The corpse climbed out of his own grave.
And then somebody shot him. Who was it? Nobody knows, even today. But remember, it was just a rumor, perhaps nothing more than a ghost story. The good people of London, they loved stories like this. That is why it was in every newspaper across the capital.
But was it just a story? I mean, this is exactly the scene that can be seen today at your museum, isn't it?
Oh, oui. The special exhibit was modeled on that very illustration. For a while afterwards, the contents of that article were reproduced in every newspaper imaginable. Madam, might I say something? Please, go ahead, mademoiselle. When something is described as a rumor, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's entirely made up. I believe that often rumors contain elements of the truth. Ah, I see that people from the East can be just as astute as the people of Europe. Can we be sure, for instance, that the professor's execution was successful?
Can we?
It is not possible for the dead to come back to life.
Sorry?
10 years ago, I was there in Lowgate Cemetery. After the criminal known as the Professor was killed by hanging, I took a wax impression of his visage from the corpse just before it was interred. So I can assure you, the man was dead.
I see. It would certainly appear that the condemned man suffered the intended fate. How is Van Zeeks feeling about all this, I wonder?
An impression of the visage was taken directly from the corpse, in accordance with Tuspel's family principles.
Hold it!
Is that true of every waxwork in your museum, then? Alright, one more pause for the ads, and then we'll do our exciting conclusion. And we'll see where this case ends up. So I am super curious. Like, I'm so interested in the story that her responses have. Like, how did this story get made up, I wonder? I really need to check out that article also, because it's really interesting to see the rumor versus the truth. So I'm curious to see what she'll reveal in the remainder of her testimony as we press her, and see what exactly can we convince her to open the mask, I wonder, because I'm very curious. It's the man in the iron mask. I'm super curious. Maybe Mr. Osmond had a twin. Could the professor have been like Mr. Osmond's twin? I mean, they're both criminals, right? So it's possible, I would think. Makes me wonder. maybe, like, that's gonna be the shocking discovery? I don't know. Could be interesting to see. We're almost back for ads, though, so... All right. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. Let us continue onward.
It is, assuming the subject is dead, of course. Live subjects have to cooperate in a similar way. I have letters from imprisoned criminals all the time, you know.
What sort of letters?
When my time comes, please make a waxwork of me. Comme ça.
No.
My museum is famous, monsieur. To be made into a waxwork is an honor, and for some criminals, a symbol of status even.
Because nothing says hardened criminal better than wax.
And it is thanks to one killer in particular that my museum has gained such popularity in London. I refer to the star of the special exhibit, of course, the Professor.
Whose form you claim to have captured by taking an impression from the actual corpse.
There are no exceptions to the principles of Tespels.
Okay, so theoretically...
I enlisted the aid of the gravedigger and created a mold for the head in the cemetery just before the internment.
Hold it!
Surely that's illegal, isn't it? Is it?
It would seem the proprietress of this repository of novelties was blinded by monetary greed. It had nothing to do with money. The man is part of London's criminal history. That is why I had to sculpt him, to record this history. It is the raison d'etre of the Tespels Museum.
But if the man was convicted in a closed court and sent for immediate execution, then surely nobody but members of the judiciary present know the killer's true identity.
I assure you, behind that mask is hidden the true face of the Professor. Do you realize what you're saying? The Professor's identity is a national secret. I understand. And now that the truth about the special exhibit has been revealed, it must perhaps close. Of course it will, as will your entire museum, if you don't tread very carefully, madam. That could be another interesting chapter in the history of my family, I think, don't you?
So, 10 years ago, on the night of the Professor's execution, you took a wax impression of his face from the corpse?
Ah oui, exactement.
Okay.
I hid myself until he gave me a signal. I was there for a very long time that night.
Hold it!
You were there longer than you expected to be?
I had some difficulties in capturing the subject's form correctly. As I removed the mask, the mouth of the cadaver fell open, and I had some problems with the chin.
Dare I ask?
The man had been dead for a short while already, you see. His muscles were relaxing, and consequently, his chin would not align itself properly. Oh dear, what a horrible thought! Under normal circumstances, I would have an assistant with me. However, that night I was alone, and in a consequence, I missed my preferred window of time.
What do you mean?
When I take the impression of the visage of a cadaver, I always wait until 3 hours after death.
Why 3 hours? Is that amount of time significant?
It is because of rigor mortis.
A Wrigley Mortis?
It's the name given to the phenomenon that occurs in recently deceased bodies. As a rule, 3 hours post-death, the muscles in the body begin to stiffen. By approximately 10 hours post-death, the entire body is completely rigid and inflexible. And then from that point on, the muscles slowly start to revert to their relaxed state.
Okay.
The effect is often used when a body, to estimate the time of death when a body is discovered.
Oh boy. Well, that was an education, if a slightly scary one.
As the Mademoiselle says, rigor mortis commences 3 hours after death, and it starts in the jaw.
Okay.
I see. So that's why you wait. Before that time, the mouth falls open, and it is very difficult to do my work.
Ugh. It's getting hard for me to do my work with all this talk of corpses. I wonder about that information the courts just heard from Madame Tussbells. Sure, it's significant. The information about rigor mortis that you just shared with us, would you mind including it in your formal testimony? I believe it could be significant, you see.
Of course, I do not mind at all. I couldn't help feeling that after this latest topic, the atmosphere in the courtroom has become extremely grave.
Oh, not you too, Susato. Are you into dad jokes now too? This is no time for jokes, Miss Sato. Oh my goodness. Madam, kindly amend your testimony as discussed.
Bien sûr.
Alright, so what's she gonna amend it to?
It took me a very long time. It was before the onset of... it took me a very long time because it was before the onset of rigor mortis.
Okay, so what do we have that, that we could figure out, right? Let's look at our evidence. First off, I want to look at that article. So let's look at this. So, Mr. Drebber's dreadful encounter. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at Logate Cemetery just behind the prison on the night of that foul demon's execution. The newly interred professor forced off his grave cover as he clawed, was that say clawed? As he clawed free of the earth. The young man who witnessed this scene was on the verge of raising a shriek when in the next second a gunshot rang out suddenly from behind. The bullet pierced the resurrected man's chest, whose breath then stilled once more. The youth then finally released the scream he had been holding and ran for his life. The university student who experienced this shock was Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London and a resident of its student dorms. Okay. Is there anything else of interest here? Is there anything here that we could see? He's got a crazy mask on. Like, why has he got claws and stuff? Wait. Odie Asman? What? Why? What? Okay, I gotta compare that signature. Let's compare this. Yeah, it's the same signature. So they had a link way back with the professor. He's also involved with this. Huh. Okay. So it took me a very long time because it was before the onset of... So rigor mortis, she said, occurs 3 hours after death. Is that what she said? I think. Let's look at the autopsy report. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight. Wait a second. I want to press this statement again.
Hold it!
Rigor mortis being the phenomenon you described whereby the corpse becomes stiff after death? I think you said that it starts at the jaw about 3 hours post-death. Is that right?
Oui, c'est ça. Of course, the exact duration depends a little on the season.
I didn't realize a waxwork artisan would be so well versed in the subject.
No, that is only elementary knowledge in the field of legal medicine.
Well, I had no idea about it, but maybe I won't admit to my ignorance about forensic science.
I could ask my father to give you a very simple primer if you like.
I think we're good. I think corpses should be your domain. I'm not good with them.
Oh dear, I'll do my very best.
Okay, so
As dawn approached, I was very worried that I could be discovered.
as dawn approached. Okay. How long did it take her to do the mask? You say that dawn was approaching? What was the time of day then, approximately?
Well, I could not say. But when I left the cemetery with my utensils and wax, the morning light was becoming visible.
And the execution took place on 17th June, which had the earliest sunrise of that year. Indeed it did. First light would have been around 4:40 in the morning. Okay. That really is early.
The fact is, I had very little time, so I finished my work in a half hour. It was necessary to complete the impression and bury the body before daybreak, of course. If somebody had discovered me there, it would have been a catastrophe, so I had to hurry.
Is it me, or does Mr. Sholmes seem to be taking shape more quickly now, too? You certainly appear to go to extraordinary lengths for your work, madam. I wonder, is what she just said particularly significant? Yes? But let's see. Madam, those details about how long it took you to complete the sculpture and the early sunrise, would you include them in your testimony? I believe they may be significant.
Of course, if you would like me to. You're quite right, Mr. Naruhodo. It is intriguing. A sunrise at 4 in the morning would be absolutely unimaginable at home, wouldn't it?
That's not quite what I meant by significant. Okay, so let's see. Kindly amend your formal testimony then, madam.
With pleasure, my lord.
So let's see what she amends it to.
I hurried to finish my work in the half hour before sunrise. Then I left as soon as the corpse was interred.
So the half hour before sunrise. So that means if it was at 4:40, sunrise was at 4:40, that means she started her work at 4:10, which means 3 hours prior to that would have been like 1 a.m. or something, right? Not midnight. So the coroner's report says midnight, though. Let's see if we can present the coroner's report to the previous statement, right? So that's all I have to go on.
What's your feeling, Mr. Naruhodo?
For some reason, Dr. Scythe went along with Drebber's plan. Now, if that's really true, then the professor is the only other thing we know of that links the pair of them. So I feel sure that the waxwork must be a clue to this mystery somehow.
In that case, we must use this cross-examination to uncover exactly what it means. Otherwise, the jurors are sure to revert their leanings, and the trial will be over.
I agree, but interestingly, uncovering what the professor has to do with all this means more to Lord Van Zieks than anyone. That's the impression I'm getting anyway.
Yes, as do I.
After all, he has a profound connection to the professor as well. He does indeed. Okay, so let's go back to her fourth statement and see. It was the one about rigor mortis. So let's go there. Okay, let's see.
It took me a very long time because it was before the onset of rigor mortis.
So if rigor mortis happens 3 hours post-death, he should have been in rigor mortis easily if he was killed at midnight, or if he was hanged at midnight. Oops, I didn't mean to press. Whoops. Let's skip all this. I didn't mean to do that at all. I wonder if we're going to have to go back to this, I think. Alright, so let's see. Because I think it's going to skip to the next statement. Whoopsie daisy. Yeah, I did. Okay, so we got to go back around. Whoops. Whoops! Alright, so we'll continue back around. I kind of hate how you have to, like, review all the stuff if you accidentally bypass it. But that's okay. So let's go back to the fourth statement one more time, and not press, but present this time. Okay, so let's present the autopsy report, right? It said, death by hanging confirmed at midnight. But that means that by 3 a.m., he should have been in rigor mortis. Definitely by 4:10 when she started her work, right?
Objection!
Madam Tuspels? I have here an autopsy report that was filed 10 years ago now. It confirms that the death of the professor following his execution at the gallows.
And is that a problem?
I believe it is, because your testimony and a particular detail in the report completely contradict one another.
Au quoi? Are you going to explain yourself, my Nipponese friend?
According to her testimony, Madame Tuspels was creating her wax impression just before dawn, and at that time, rigor mortis had not yet set in. Am I correct so far, madam?
You are, yes. As I said, the stiffening of the jaw is the first sign of rigor mortis, 2 to 3 hours after death. But the man's chin was limp, so he could not have been dead for a long time.
But on the other hand, if you look at Dr. Scythe's report, it quite clearly states the following. Death by hanging confirmed at midnight, 17th of June.
No.
If the professor indeed died at midnight that day, then by the time you were sculpting his face, rigor mortis would have already set in.
Oui, yes, you are right. The chin, it would have been completely stiff.
In other words, this report is wrong.
Objection!
No coroner makes mistakes when reporting the time of death. The very idea is absurd.
And yet it's true. In that case, there's only one possible conclusion. The execution didn't actually take place at the stated time.
Impossible.
Oh, but it's not. Order! Order, counsel. This is beyond folly. Not only do you indict the author of the report, Dr. Scythe, but you also implicate members of staff at Barclay Prison, where the execution took place. By heck, extraordinary! Not my day!
My learned friend appears to have overlooked one very crucial fact.
What fact?
The professor died that night, without question. He did? Of course he did. I moved the man's limp jaws with my own hand.
Yes, the professor died that night. But what if he didn't die at the gallows?
Didn't die at the... Are you insane? What? What exactly are you suggesting did happen in that case?
He wasn't dead when he was buried, but he died to the gunshot? It's almost impossible to believe, but it would explain the link between Dr. Scythe, the professor, and that one other person of interest. I have evidence that will explain exactly what I'm suggesting happened that night. Oh, man.
Counsel, present the evidence at once. The evidence that allegedly explains what happened to the night, on the night of the professor's execution.
Okay, so, is it gonna be this new piece of information? Like, let's look at this again. If he actually came out of the grave, he wasn't dead, but then the bullet killed him. That's what it says, right? The bullet pierced him. He wasn't actually dead. He was buried alive, right?
Take that!
What happened that night is written very plainly in this newspaper article. Executed criminal returns in the dead of night at local cemetery.
You're suggesting it was a corpse coming back from the dead now?
Well, if this article is to be believed, yes. The professor, assumed dead following his execution, emerged from his grave and was killed again. Don't be a fool. That's simply a rumor published by the gutter press. Can you be certain of that? Are you serious? The point is, as the article says, there was a witness to what happened. My word, yes indeed.
Mais oui, the young man who stole into the cemetery by chance that night.
Objection!
Of course there was a witness. The story didn't write itself, but obviously the men made it all up. And in any case, this was 10 years ago now. There would surely be no hope of finding him, but we know who it is.
Objection!
It's the guy whose hair turned white. On the contrary, my lord, we all know this witness well. What? Are you suggesting, counsel, that you've identified the person in question? That you know who claims to have seen these utterly incredible events take place? Yes, my lord. In fact, you could say he's right here before my very eyes. You will substantiate your latest claim now, then, counsel. Who is the alleged witness of this staggering scene from the cemetery 10 years ago? Why, it's our good friend Enoch Drebber.
Take that!
The man in question is Mr. Enoch Drebber. Drebber? The previous witness? The special exhibit in the House of Horrors at Madame Tussbell's Museum of Waxwork recreates that decade-old scene in great detail. And we figured out that that was Drebber already. The condemned criminal emerging from the grave, and beside the tomb, a young man with a lantern stumbling upon the terrifying sight. And that young man is a 10-year younger Mr. Enoch Drebber. Oh, man. Oh, man. Order, order, order! Surely not, counsel. Drebber was there, in Lowgate Cemetery?
What is all this talk about Mr. Drebber? Is the name significant?
Of course, Madame Tussbells doesn't know, does she? Yes, it's extremely significant, madam. To your situation as well, in fact.
What situation?
The theft of the Professor Waxwork from your museum some days ago was perpetrated by the very same man.
No. But that would mean...
Madame Tussbells, it would appear you know the name Enoch Drebber.
Oui, yes, I know it. But from long ago in the past.
What?
Oh my!
Good gracious! Explain yourself. Tell us everything you know.
Yes, of course.
Oh, man.
The story of the young man and the terrible sight he witnessed in the cemetery 10 years ago was published in every single newspaper in London and throughout Great Britain. However, in all of the articles, the witness was simply described as a certain young man. No details were published about his identity. His name was never revealed. That is, apart from in one newspaper. The Daily Circus. It is the paper from which comes the article I have already shown the court.
You're saying that his full name was only publicized in that article? Goodness me, yes, here it is. The university student who experienced this shocking event is Mr. Enoch Drebber, a disciple of science at the University of London, and a resident of its student dorms. Yes, we read that, didn't we? Unbelievable!
When I read the article, I went to meet with the man. His discovery of the condemned criminal coming back to life in the cemetery in the dead of night would make a perfect exhibit and for my House of Horrors, whether it was for the truth or not.
I see. So you went to meet Mr. Drebber in order to sculpt the waxwork of the man, did you?
Exactement. He was studying science at the University of London in those days. He was just a poor student. I paid him £5 to model for the waxwork. And since that time, it has been in my museum to recreate the scene of terror from the cemetery.
Oh boy. Everyone's soaking this in as the importance of what was just said slowly sinks in. Oh man. So 10 years ago, a young man appealed to the public about an extraordinary event he'd witnessed. A criminal who had been put to death, re-emerging from his grave in the middle of the night. But the public treated his claim as nothing more than an amusing anecdote that was soon forgotten. 10 years later, the same man steals a waxwork model of the executed criminal, ostensibly to use as a body double for the victim in the case we're discussing here today, even though the waxwork's build is a poor match for the victim and its face is obscured by a mask. So the question is, why would the man do such a thing? Which brings us to 3 days ago, when the birdcage crashed into the Crystal Tower. If the birdcage had in fact contained not the body of Mr. Asman, but that same waxwork, the coroner from Scotland Yard who investigated, Dr. Scythe, would have noticed immediately. And yet, she submitted this autopsy report for the victim, which the court has seen earlier. Why?
Because the waxwork was that of the professor. Is that what you're saying?
Dr. Scythe put her name to a document confirming the death of a condemned criminal who was still alive, a criminal whose apparent resurrection was witnessed by Mr. Drebber. But that misconduct was a deadly secret the coroner would do anything to protect, which is precisely why Mr. Drebber used that particular waxwork as the body double. Oh man, all the drama. My lord? This court must summon Dr. Scythe to the stand. The defense is determined to find out exactly how the coroner and Mr. Drebber are connected. Maybe they're the twins. But according to the missive I received this morning through the prosecutor's office, Dr. Scythe is unable to participate in these proceedings. Is that not the case?
She told us so herself, didn't she? Lord Van Zieks won't be summoning me as a witness. Lord Strongheart has forbidden it.
Lord Strongheart?
The Pandora's box you were warned about is the professor case. But please don't make the mistake of thinking you'll get any information about it out of me.
So they kind of look alike, don't they? Something happened on the night of that killer's execution 10 years ago, and surely nobody would want to get to the bottom of that more than Lord Van Zieks. He's thinking,
the prosecution calls for the instructions in that missive to be scrapped.
But Lord Van Zieks, the missive was issued from the Lord Chief Justice's
Objection.
office.
The assigned prosecutor has the final say on policy in any particular trial. In other words, me.
Yes.
Let Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe both take the stand together.
Oh man, it's gonna go down. Order, order, order. Very well, I will uphold your request. Bailiff, send a subpoena with immediate effect addressed to Dr. Scythe of the Forensic Investigation Team. The woman is compelled to attend on Her Majesty's orders. All right then, Enoch Drebber and Dr. Scythe. If they weren't colluding with one another, this crime could never have been committed. I'm just a stone's throw away. I can feel it. The truth behind all of this is about to come out. Oh, man. All right. So, of course, you know, we're going to pause there. Because that's the perfect cliffhanger. So, let's go ahead and save it. I will redeem the hydrate. I was trying to get to a nice little pause there. All right. Now, we go back to the title screen, and that is where we are going to pause it for today. So, oh man. Oops, let's go back. Don't save. Yes. We've already saved. We're good. All right, and that is where we are going to pause it right there on that epic cliffhanger. What is Dr. Scythe going to be compelled to reveal? And how are she and Drebber related? Are they married? Are they siblings? Are they somehow otherwise connected? What exactly are we going to discover? We will find out all that and more in our next episode. So if you enjoyed this one, please make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share, all that good stuff. If you want to watch live, we're on Twitch at twitch.tv/LeR27. I have my schedule posted in the about and in the description. And if you want to see which games we're playing each day, I post them on x.com/LeR27. And I hope you'll join me in the next one. Until then, guys, bye. All right, that was epic, man. That was amazing, but that is sadly going to be where we are going to have to stop today. So, we will be back here tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time. We will be playing some more TCG Card Company. I'm so stoked. I love that game so much. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then we are going to be playing Riven after that. So, we have those two games lined up for us. And now let us see who we can raid for today. Let us see. Who all is playing stuff? Let's see. We're looking to see who all is playing stuff. Anything interesting? Everybody I've already raided. I gotta raid someone new. Okay, so let's raid Honey Bunny Killer. She's playing, it looks like Bloodborne, she says. I'm not sure, so we will give her a raid. And once again, thank you everybody so much for hanging out today. I hope you enjoyed the story. I am really enjoying it. Thank you for spending your afternoon with me. And I hope to see you back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central. We're going to have a blast with the TCG Card Company and exploring some more on Riven. We've opened up some new ideas there, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, so I'll see you guys tomorrow. So until then, bye.